Hello and welcome to another Sinister Sunday. Today we're going to go over true paranormal experiences from people all over the world. Whether or not you believe in the paranormal, the people who report having these experiences are certain that when it comes to paranormal activity, they've experienced something they simply cannot explain. This first experience I'm going to tell you about is called The Grandmas in the Cemetery. Jeff, a resident of Dayton, Ohio, was driving with his 3-year-old son, Miles, in the back seat when they passed by a modest cemetery decorated with only flowers and small plaques. It basically looked like a giant garden, Jeff explained. According to Jeff, as they drove by, his toddler, who had been happily singing, abruptly stopped, pointed to the cemetery and exclaimed, "Look at all those people." Jeff turned his head towards the cemetery, but didn't see a soul. Confused, he asked Miles what he was talking about. "All those people over there," his son replied. "There sure are a lot of grandmas." Chills started to run down Jeff's spine as he asked his son, "What are the people doing?" "They're all standing there, looking down at the grass," Miles said. Completely unsettled by this conversation, Jeff sped up and drove home. Later that same day, he said his young son was watching TV when he turned to Jeff and said, "You know, they weren't alive." Thinking that Miles was referring to the cartoon, Jeff asked what he meant. And he said, "Those people we saw, they were all paused," the son replied. "I didn't know if my kid had a sixth sense," Jeff said, "or if he just had a wild imagination." Our next story takes us to Oklahoma, where a young lady named Jacqueline recalls memories from years past. She recalled having an imaginary friend when she was young. Jacqueline's grandparents, Granny Junie and Pa Hank, lived in a small home with a quiet backyard. Jacqueline recalls visiting them when she was a child. "I have very good memories of Pa Hank," Jacqueline said. "He would sit under the tree with me and tell me stories. The stories were often about his life and memories of Prohibition. He was actually a very interesting character. The only problem? Her grandfather died in 1981, and Jacqueline wasn't born until 1982. Jacqueline recalls, "I don't even think I ever realized that I was getting stories from a ghost," she said, adding that the rest of her family did know of his presence in the house. "My Granny Junie would never stay in the house on the anniversary of his death. He did die in the house." Jacqueline also recalls hearing her Pa Hank get up in the middle of the night when she was staying at the house. "It never occurred to me that these were memories of an entity." In hindsight, Jacqueline says that even though her childhood imaginary friend was actually her deceased grandfather, it cast a different light because it was a relative and not a stranger. "It never felt like a ghost or a spirit. It felt like I was talking to my Pa Hank." Our next story, The Ghost Dog, comes from Sarah of Lancaster, Ohio. Sarah tells the story of her childhood dog, Cricket. According to Sarah, Cricket was a pretty unhappy dog. She was super cranky and she only liked Sarah's grandma. She always seemed like she didn't feel very well. Still, the family loved their dog and was devastated when the pup ran out into the road and was struck and killed by a passing car. The family had just been preparing to go on a family vacation when this happened. It was very sad, very upsetting, especially with me being a child. My grandmother was there, and she loved Cricket, and Cricket loved her. Cricket and Grandma had a special relationship that none of us had with her. Despite the loss, the family had prepaid their vacation and, not having a lot of money, decided to still go. They left Cricket's body with an aunt who offered to make the necessary arrangements. Upon arriving at the hotel where they were staying, Sarah says the family was upset over the tragedy. We go to bed, and in the middle of the night, I'm not sure why I woke up, but I was startled. Woke up, sat up in bed, and looked down, and there on the floor was Cricket, a full-body apparition of her, Sarah said. She looked so happy. She looked like a different dog. She was jumping around. All that crankiness and all that unhappiness she had was gone. It was like she was coming to tell me that she was okay. It was the clearest apparition. I had never seen an apparition before, and I've never seen one again. It was the first and only time. Sarah said she told her mother in the morning what she had seen, and her mom dismissed it as her middle school brain just trying to make sense of the loss. I guess that's possible, Sarah said. But to this day, I can still envision Cricket in that moment. I've never forgotten that image, and it helped me feel better about what happened because she seemed so happy, and I do think she was visiting me that night. Do you have a paranormal experience you wish to share? Please contact me on Messenger and I'll be happy to share your story. Thank you again for watching another Sinister Sunday. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing, like this video, and share it out. Please check out our Sinister Sunday playlist for more content like this. We'll see you next week.